What's going on, guys? Overman back again. So, a little while ago, I made a video telling you guys not to pre-order Far Cry Primal because it was probably gonna suck, and well, I was wrong. Well, kind of. It's complicated, so have a drink and let me tell you what I think of it so far.
Agui. Udambi. Upafi. Udam. Fakwe ha aya pasta. Udam. Lakwe ha aya pasta.
So the main reason why I thought Primal would suck is that without guns, the combat and gameplay would suffer because it would be so much more repetitive with just a bow and spear. And I think a lot of people missed the point of that last Far Cry video. A lot of people got the idea that I was saying that any game without guns wouldn't be fun, and that's just silly. Nothing could be further from the truth. My favorite game of 2015 without a doubt is The Witcher 3, and there's no guns to be found in that game. But Far Cry isn't The Witcher. I thought that without the variety and depth that the guns brought to Far Cry, there wouldn't be much else to keep the game interesting and fun. And for the most part, I was right about that. The combat in Far Cry Primal is okay at best. You'll have 3 weapons to choose from: the club, the bow, and the spear. I really don't like the club. I think it's clunky and sometimes awkward to use. Now, most of the time you can just run up on a guy and smack him in the head with your club just fine, but occasionally you'll miss for no good reason. And the biggest problem with the club is that it just isn't fun to use, and I don't get that much satisfaction from getting kills with it. Now, the bow is a lot better, but it's what you would expect from a Far Cry game. The aim assist is pretty damn strong in this game, but despite that, the bow kills are still decently satisfying to me, especially when you lead your shot correctly and clap a motherfucker in the face with an arrow. The spear, though, is my favorite weapon, despite being boring as hell to use as a melee weapon, because you're basically just poking your enemy to death. The reason why the spear is my favorite weapon is because it's really satisfying to throw it at someone and one-shot them. And I know that from just watching the gameplay, it doesn't look that fun, but trust me, it really is, at least for me anyways. And I guess that was another reason why I poo-pooed on this game pre-release. This game is really boring to watch, and after playing it, I've realized that videos don't do Primal justice. Videos don't really capture the experience of playing this game, and I know that sounds really obvious, and that can be said for every other game out there as well, but I think it's especially true for Primal. So while I was right about the combat being meh, I was wrong to say that this would just be a Stone Age skin on top of Far Cry 4. After playing the game, I can tell that the devs knew that the game would suffer without guns, so they added a bunch of other mechanics and features to try and make up for it. One of the new mechanics in Primal is fire, and you can use fire for a number of different things. One thing that you can do is light your weapons on fire for extra damage. My favorite weapon to light on fire is the bow. Well, more like the arrows, but you get the point. Since they're pretty accurate and easy to craft, they're my first option for lighting something on fire. But one thing you'll have to keep in mind is that if you light an arrow on fire and then you shoot it at a guy and you kill him, you cannot walk over his body and pick up the arrow like you normally would if you didn't use the flaming arrow. And the same goes for the spear, which is why I prefer to set my arrows on fire, since you can carry a lot more arrows than you can spears and they require less materials to craft. The other way that you can use fire is by lighting up your club and using it as a torch at night. Which brings me to the next mechanic, which is the day and night cycle. At night, more predators come out to hunt and your food. And one of the cool things about fire is that you can swing your club and not even hit the animal, but it'll run away because, of course, fire is scary. And I find this to be pretty useful since at night you'll encounter a lot of wolves and jaguars and other things that just want to rip your face off. And speaking of animals, of course, one of the big additions to Far Cry Primal is the ability to tame animals. You can command your beast in Primal the same way you commanded Tony the Spirit Tiger in the Shangri-La section of Far Cry 4. The first animal you tame is the white wolf, but you can tame a bunch of other animals including bears, tigers, lions, jaguars, and badgers. There are also rare versions of some of these animals. So for example, the white wolf is a rare version of the normal wolf, so it's basically the same animal but with slightly better stats. And all of the other animals have different stats as well. There's strength, speed, and stealth. Now, I haven't tamed too many animals at the moment, so you'll have to wait for my full review for that, but for right now, I think it's a nice little addition to the game. My white wolf has been pretty useful so far. Sometimes I use him as a distraction when fighting tougher animals like bears, so he'll run up and draw the bear's attention while I shoot arrows and throw my spears from a safe distance, and that usually works out pretty well for me. And sometimes I play as a distraction inadvertently. Like this one time I was fighting a mammoth and it started chasing me down, so Geralt had the chance to run up and attack the mammoth without being attacked himself, and he actually ended up getting the killing blow for me, which was pretty damn dope. Now, I am skeptical about this mechanic because I don't really see how the other animals will play differently. If I had to guess, I'd say that the other animals like the jaguars, lions, and tigers will play just like the wolf, but with slightly different stats. Because, I mean, what else are they gonna do? At the end of the day, all of your beasts are gonna run up on your enemies and bite them in the ass, right? I don't know, I'll see and I'll let you guys know. And since we're talking about the animals, I'd like to briefly talk about some of the new hunting mechanics. First off, there's this new hunter vision thing that will highlight all of the important stuff, so any resources like wood and plants, but it'll also highlight animals and enemies. The cool thing about this is that if you shoot an arrow at an animal and you don't kill it, when it runs away you can track it with your hunter vision because you'll see its blood drippings on the ground. And since animals can bleed in this game, you can, for example, shoot a goat with an arrow and it won't die right away, so while it's running away from you, it'll eventually bleed out and die. And then you can track it with your hunter vision and go skin it. I think that this is pretty cool. It's not a major improvement, but it's nice and it makes for a more immersive experience because it really allows you to roleplay as a hunter. Now, I've saved what is, in my opinion, the best for last, which is the ability to build your own village in Primal. In fact, this is pretty much the primary objective in Far Cry Primal, to build a village for all of your Wenja homies. So basically how this works is you'll explore the open world and you'll find NPCs who can be brought back to your village. You'll then use your resources to build and upgrade huts for them. And after you build their hut, they'll offer you some upgrades. For example, the shaman will teach you how to tame animals, and the Fettiwap guy will upgrade your spear and craft you clothes that allow you to explore the northern areas that are brutally cold. And in addition to these named NPCs, your village will also be home to some nameless common folk. And to my understanding, the more of these villagers that you have, the more resources they'll be able to gather for you. So in previous Far Cry games, you had to do all of the resource farming yourself if you wanted to craft stuff. But in Far Cry Primal, your villagers will do it for you if busy work isn't your thing. And I really like this because it makes the Wenja feel useful. In Far Cry 3 and 4, it seemed like the factions you were helping were absolutely useless and did nothing at all to help you. I think that by making the villagers useful, I can get into the game a lot more, and not to mention, it makes things more fun since I don't have to run around gathering plants and sticks all of the time. However, I will say that it's kind of weird that you can't take anyone from your village out with you to help you out with missions and stuff, cause it's pretty unrealistic in my opinion to have one guy going out there to fight all the bad guys. So I guess in that way it does definitely remind me of Far Cry 3 and 4. But anyways, by now, you're probably thinking that I really like this game from all the good things that I've said. And you'd be wrong. I don't hate this game, nor do I think it sucks. But I don't think that it's amazing either. So far, I feel like this game is just alright. Despite all of the things that the devs added into this game, Primal just doesn't do it for me. And it's because of the combat. It just isn't good enough. One of the big points of that last Far Cry video was that Far Cry's melee combat is not good enough to build a game around. And while the range combat in this game isn't bad, you're not going to be able to avoid the god-awful melee. I stand by what I said about Primal pre-release. I think it would have been much better as a new IP with brand new melee combat that was designed specifically for the Stone Age. Unfortunately, I don't think we would see a game like that from Ubisoft because new IPs are riskier and cost a lot more to make. And since they made Primal under the Far Cry name, they could benefit from the brand recognition that Far Cry has built up over the years, which makes the game easier to sell. Unfortunately, in this case, it's us the consumers that lose because this Stone Age concept does have a good amount of potential, but when you cram it into the box that is Far Cry, it just doesn't work, at least in my opinion. So even though this is just a first impressions video, I recommend that you don't run out and buy this game because it's not amazing or anything, but even if this game does pick up and it does get better, the thing is, this is a single player only game. There's no multiplayer or co-op, so you don't lose anything by waiting for a price drop or a sale, which is ultimately what I recommend if you're interested in this game. But that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to bash that like button. If you're not feeling too shy, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about Far Cry Primal. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to hit that subscribe button, especially if you want to see a full review of Far Cry Primal where I talk about this game in more depth. So until next time, over me.